Thanks, Kerry. Again, this is John Dombrowski, Director of the Enforcement Targeting Data Division. And I want to welcome everyone and thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Real quick before I jump into the overview, I kind of look at this webinar or the implementation of the NPDES electronic reporting rule as a collaborative effort between EPA and our state partners. We can't do this without you guys, and part of that is making sure we have an open dialogue and we continue talking to each other about the implementation of the rule. We've set up numerous calls with states to talk about where you guys are at and upcoming deadline for implementation plans. Well, this webinar really is sharing our implementation, at least at this point where we're at. And we felt it's important that you understand the things that we're doing on our end, because that might help you guys with your implementation. So again, thank you for attending, and I look forward to the dialogue that we're going to have as we're implementing this rule. So real quick, an overview of the NPDES reporting rule. The rule was signed last September of 2015, and it was published in the Federal Register in October of 2015. And you've heard me say this before, but it's really bringing the NPDES program into the 21st century by shifting from paper to electronic reporting. A lot of programs are going this way. A lot of EPA programs are going this way. State programs. A lot of states are even ahead of the game in this area. And it really, why we're doing it, because it saves time and money for everyone, for EPA, for states, for the regulated community. Improves data quality, data accuracy, improves transparency, allowing us to focus on the most important problems. And it's using technology to bring in more accurate and timely information to the NPDES program overall. So an example, we're going from paper, as you can see here in our slide, and these are true pictures that we have, and we're going to electronic. And then to be honest with you, it's almost virtually impossible to review all this paperwork in a timely fashion. But taking advantage of technology, we should be able to do that more efficiently. The overview of the rule, what does it cover? Well, here are the parts that are listed. It supports DMRs, which is probably the biggest data flow that we have for the NPDES program. And it also is going to support general permits, which will cover the largest universe of the NPDES regulated facilities. And then there will be program areas like biosolids, CAFOs, MS4s. There's certain data that EPA and states need to generate and provide, such as permit information, inspection information, violations and enforcement. And it's also going to eliminate requirements that are currently on the books, such as the state biosolids annual report, semi-annual statistical report. Phase out the state burden for the ANCR and QNCR because we'll have now the data that we could go ahead and generate that. The electronic reporting tools that we're using from our end to implement this, there are really two tools that we have, and they're both available to states. Right now, NetDMR has been in production for some time, and we have a good number of state partners that are using NetDMR, and we're constantly trying to make improvements to NetDMR based upon the feedback and comments we're getting from our state partners and as well as facilities. The other electronic reporting tool that we have in place is NET. It's the NPDES electronic reporting tool. And that's used really to support the general permits and program reports for NPDES. And right now that has been in production for a couple of federal general permits, but we're hoping that, again, our state partners will be able to take advantage of that tool like they do NetDMR. The rule is being implemented in two phases. Again, the rule went effective last December. So the first phase, which is really DMR submissions in the federal biosolids report, kicks in this December 21. And we're doing as much training and outreach and assistance we can to states on the tools that are needed for phase one, as well as the biosolids reports that EPA runs in the federal program. Phase 2 kicks in December of 2020, which is 5 years from the effective date of the rule. And that's when the general permits and program reports come into play. That doesn't mean you have to wait till then if you want to implement your general permits and electronic reporting prior to them. That is strongly encouraged, and we hope you do so. But that's the date that we're hoping that general permits do become electronic reporting, as well as the program reports. The other thing to point out here on this slide, there's an adoption rate of 90%. And again, that is a goal that we have set for this program for each data family, and that's in the preamble of the final rule. That is not a regulatory requirement. And I just want to clarify that because some states and other facilities have gotten that confused. We're partnering with states on implementation. We're working with states to develop forms as necessary for electronic reporting. For example, EPA worked with 10 states and EPA headquarters and regional biosolids experts to develop the biosolids annual reporting form. And again, we're bringing that into production here this year for phase 1. We've nearly had over 100 testers that helped us with testing the biosolids form, and we're working with states to help figure out how to display this information once we get it in our public access site of ECHO. EPA has started work on phase 2 for electronic reporting, and again, we're working with regions and states, for example, now to develop the form for sewer overflow reports. I think that's about it, and I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie.
Yep.